Wasn't that lovely? That's the sound of the JX-08P. Ah, no, it isn't. It's the sound of the new Boutique JX-08, which is modelled on the JX-8P. That's the original synth, was out in, I think it was 1985. It cost about $1,700 at the time. Obviously, this Boutique is designed to be more affordable. It uses the new ABM analog behaviour modelling system with the new Boutiques. It also doesn't look much like a JX-8P because it's got kind of basically a bunch of controls that you would have found on the optional programmer unit for it. So you actually get a lot more hands-on control than you would do with the original JX-8P. The thing about the new range of these Boutiques, they seem to be a little better than the early ones because we had the JB-08 and they just had limited voice counts. This, the JX-08, increases the voice count. We get up to 20 on here. Not entirely sure what that means because I don't think it's dependent on the number of oscillators you use. Couldn't get any clarification on that, but up to 20 is a significant improvement. Yes, it's still the Boutique. I mean, they haven't changed anything. If you don't like the Boutique format, probably this isn't going to be for you, but I would encourage you to listen on because as you heard in the intro sound, it's got this massively wide and expansive chorus sound. But more about the case. Boutique standard. This has the generous 30mm faders rather than the 20 of the JD-08 I recently reviewed. We also have full-size MIDI in and out. We've got stereo output on miniJack, stereo output phones on miniJack. We've also got a stereo input, external clock in for running to external sequences because there's two sequences in here, one per part, because we've got an A part and a B part, which you can see there. We can have splits, we can have layers, we can play it multi-timbral. There's also 128 patches in here as opposed to the original 64. But aside from that, it's the same thing. Runs on batteries if you like, but is actually powered via a USB-C cable. Very pleased to see USB-C used over the micro USB. Just feels more sturdy somehow, less likely to snap off and break. It's just a bit more. I mean, ideally, I'd like to see USB-A, but USB-C is better than micro. So Roland have continued. This is the lastly announced one. I know I've taken a little bit of time to get round to this, but I've been playing with it a little bit. So let's take a look at some of the basic sounds, because the JX-8P is a sort of classic synth, but it doesn't have some things that that you would expect from kind of those classic analogs. Before I go there, though, I should also mention that we've got USB audio interface, like we do with the JD-08, which gives you 2 ins, which is from here, a return back to the unit, it's got a little speaker in it, and also 8 outputs. So we've got a mix, layer, part A, part B, so you can have those separately, and the stereo input that comes in via the miniJack. Now, wouldn't it be great if there was a mixer that we could just plug this into and it would just have all those audio interface returns and we could plug multiple ones? Well, there kind of was, wasn't there? The Roland MX1, maybe time they updated that. They're going to keep out bringing these JX and Boutiques out with all these additional kind of USB features, USB outputs. It would be nice to be able to access them other than aggregating them into our devices, because we can't all do that. Anyway, let's get on to the unit. I've got a part A patch. I think up here I've just got an init patch. There we go. And that is just one oscillator. These are DCOs, ABM modelling, not the new Zencore. And we believe that ABM is a kind of more restricted version of Zencore, but it allows for more DSP efficiency, hence more layering, more polyphony, that kind of stuff. So 16 to 2 foot, sawtooth, skinny pulse, full square, and noise, and that's the same on both, except we've got additional cross mod and sync on these guys. In fact, I've got some more patches in here. I think this one uses the sync. So we can do sync. This also shows you some of the new effects that we've got in there, but I digress. I'm getting away with myself. So both oscillators, plus or minus an octave, and fine tune. Okay, so it's not the most fully featured oscillator, missing quite a lot of waveforms. Nice to see a triangle or a sine, But again, I'm not really reviewing the original JX-08p, I'm reviewing the Boutique, and I guess these are the features that had, and so this has that. We can also cross-mod. There's a little cross-mod button here which allows us to modulate oscillator DC02 with DC01. And we can get some interesting additional harmonics, but again, it's not really about what the original didn't have, it's what this has got, and I guess, you know, it's okay. One thing I should mention, which I don't think I have said, we can also, you see when I actually play a patch here, and I change to another one, we get overhang, and that is really cool in a synth of this price, you know, 349, I think, UK pounds roughly, to have that overhang, and that's overhang with effects as well. You don't normally see that in such affordable items. Just a nice little touch. Then we've got modelled analog filter, VCF. Which does sound pretty nice. In fact, there are other filter types in here. There are 3 filter types. This, I guess, is the original. Number 2 is... Let's go back to number 1. Slightly different resonance. And then this guy, filter type 3, which just seems to be a bit warmer. Resonant ladder filters, usual kind of drill, nothing out of the ordinary there. Then we've got a high pass filter, which is useful for skinning up the sound, continually variable, all this usual stuff. I mean, I'm not going to kind of review a JX-08p. We've got a pair of envelopes and, you know, all the usual thing. But the thing that I think really brings this to life is, if I come back out to my menu, is this chorus. So this is the sound I started with. Listen to that chorus, it's ludicrous. And then chorus type 2. I don't know about you, but that sounds, I mean, that sounds more massive than my Juno 106 chorus, which is lovely, but this just sounds like they sort of really went to town and maybe made it more... I'm not familiar with the JX-08p, I'd never owned one, but that chorus is amazing. Really amazing, and as such, I played a few more sounds in here. These are ones that I made, which incidentally I'll try, maybe I'll sample some of these so you can have them on Patreon using the Decent Sampler for our Patreon supporters. This is a sync. It does sound pretty nice. This is just a sort of a mono sound, because when we go into, we've got mono sound, we've got mono, poly, and then if I press it together, a unison, and then if I press and hold, we get, if I press and hold, yeah, they flash. Then we get a mono unison. There's no way of detuning or setting the detune of these as far as I can tell, but it can get pretty thunderous. Let's come out of note mode, and this was another sync sound. And this also shows off some of the effects, because as well as the chorus, we've got various different delays, and there's also a reverb. You access these by pressing and holding these two together, then you get to type, and we got all these different kinds of delay. Overdrive, bit reduction. In fact, there's a great patch in here. If I come out here, you can hear some bit reduction. Let me see if I can find that one. It's in A18, I think it was. Which is using the bit reducer to create that kind of talking sound, which, you know, is kind of cool. You also might have noticed, if I just bring up, I've got a brass sound here, which I think is 16. Play this. We can map monophonic aftertouch to filter, envelope and level. That's all done in the menu item, which if we come back, we go to menu, part, we could set the, let me see, it's the velocity of the pitch envelope, amplitude envelope and the filter envelope, also aftertouch, filter, frequency, level in here. These are all sort of, it's nice this, isn't it? Sadly not polyphonic aftertouch, but maybe one day. That same sound with the chorus on it. So we can have either chorus 1 or chorus 2, or the third effect and reverb. While I'm here, let's have a look at the reverb. We'll just go to part, and then I think if I press and hold, actually, press and hold usually takes you to that. We can have send. We'll send level right up, then we'll go type, we'll go plate, and then let's just turn the, oh, the time is high. Level. Let's come out again. Let's try type, make that hall. Get some nice long ones in there, but it's not, you know, they're not really, there's the sort of shimmer or some modern, they're adequate. Where it really gets interesting is when we get to these, because we've got delay, rhythm delay, overdrive, there's just a whole bunch of interesting algorithms which make it a little bit more modern and more useful. So far so good. I mean, how's it like to program your own sounds in there? I suppose we should take a look at that. So if we start again, we'll come out of here, and then I'll go to my, I think I want to go to C. C41 is my first, take the, what I will do here is perhaps create a kind of PWM kind of sound, because it is possible to sort of emulate that. Okay, let's start with a couple of square waves, just an init patch I've got here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into sync mode on DCO2 and then modulate the pitch via the LFO. We've got a single LFO. Doesn't go very high up into audio rates, you know, it's got sine, square and random with a delay. So that's a sort of PWM. Let's just get a bit, not exactly the perfect PWM, it's not the real thing, but in the absence of it actually being there, it's the best I could do. If I stick a bit of chorus on there, a bit of reverb, maybe bring it up an octave, start to filter it. Single wave. Almost there. I mean, you know, what can you do? I mean, and as such, any criticisms I might have of the synthesizer could go back to the original, which is no PWM, for instance, and only one LFO that doesn't go into audio rates. But that's really not what we're reviewing here. We're reviewing the Boutique. So another thing that we can do on this is split and layer. I mean, we can obviously just set the individual parts on individual MIDI channels and play them either via something like this, where we can set the different splits and layers or whatever, or a master keyboard, or we can do it via the dual and split that are actually on the unit itself. So if I now go into, say, split mode, here is my low sound, which is on C43, my nice big chorus, and then on my B, individually, or I could do that in dual mode where they'll both play together, which I might want to turn. So now I've got them both on in dual, but I can change the patch. Or change the patch on this side. Very easy to set up and great to see split and layer. And of course we can work with this multi-timbrallity as well, and just being able to switch between the active parts, part A and part B, just by dedicated switch, very handy. And don't forget, we've got separate effects for each part as well. And if you're using this USB mode, you've got two completely independent synth engines together with independent effects as well. So there's also the sequencer on this. I didn't actually get round to showing this on the JD-08 because there was so much synth to kind of look at. On the JX-08, I'll just show you how it can be used, because we've got two independent sequencers, each up to 64 steps each. One for part A and one for part B. I press and hold the sequence and I get into the sequence menu. If I press and hold start, I can load and save any of the 128 sequencer patches, but let's not get into that now. So I'm going to set my sequencer length. At the moment it's set to 64, which is the maximum. I'm going to go for 32. We could go all the way up to 64. I'm going for 32, and there, just so we've got a couple of bars. And you'll notice here, I've got the clock output coming out from the KeyStep Pro, and that's going into the JD-08. So I can sync the sequencer over MIDI or out of USB over MIDI, but I'm going to use the clock in just to demonstrate that it works there. So I'm coming out, I'm in sequence A. So I'm going to go into real-time record, press and hold. I can do step time if I want, but I'm going real-time, and I'm just going to come back out here. I've got my metronome running on this because otherwise I wouldn't be able to hear what I'm doing. So let's just play. 3, 4. Right. There's my sequence in there. I can very quickly switch to my next sequence, which is a lovely bass sound. Which I'll record in. Just real time again. This is just 16s. Oops, fluff that. So I'll just clear that. And I'm still in record mode, which is kind of handy, so it's very sort of real time too. Right, let's just start that again. 2. So I've now got my sequence running. I've got to be careful. When I stop the sequence, it's not leaving it on a note on because it will just hang. But so there's my two parts, but there's more to this, because now what I can do is just... let's modulate a bit of stuff. So this is now, if I go back into record, I've got a whole bunch of... do a bit of that on the B sequence. Now let's stop that. There we go. We've got to get the stop point right. There's no limit to the amount of parameters that we can record on this. I mean, I've tried stacking it up, and the motion sequence seems to be whatever you want to throw at it. There are some things it doesn't do. It doesn't do the effect switching, but it does pretty much any of these front panel controls apart from this guy. But you could do portamento and whatnot. And it's really handy. And as such, I can then, if I want to go back to my A sequence, I could then go to menu and I could delete the notes. So therefore now I've got my... my bass sound, and I can just play. So you can see I can use this as a really comprehensive mod matrix as well. So I could take the notes out and just record a load of parameters against time, a massive amount of parameters, and I can play my notes through those changes over real time, up to 64 steps either side. Really nicely implemented sequence, actually. I wish I'd looked at it a bit more closely on the JX-08, but to be honest, it sort of makes more sense on this because all the parameters are much more sort of near the surface and there's less going on. So yeah, nice touch. So this is the Boutique JX-08. Actually, a nice little capable instrument. I mean, obviously the shortcomings of the original are also there, but actually what you get is a kind of pretty nice hands-on, very analog feeling. Yes, it's the Boutique smallness. I mean, I guess we're not going to criticise that because that's just the way it is. But we've also got the ability to have the USB output. We've got that seamless patch switching. We've got the sequencers, the clock in, you know, all these things are kind of nice additional features. A couple of things that I did notice were missing. There's no sort of performance store mode. So if I set up an A and a B, the only way I can store that is actually in a sequence. So I would load the sequence and then that would bring the patches and the sequence in. So I suppose we can get there, but it's not quite. The other thing that I couldn't really find a setting for was fader pickup mode. So when you switch layers, it automatically jumps to the first value that you send. It would be nice if there was a kind of fader pickup mode because that would just make certainly performative stuff easier to deal with. My other shortcomings were really shortcomings of the original synth, so I can't really say that that's a problem. The Boutique itself, like I say, these new Rolands, they really do seem to have a little bit more, that extra polyphony, you know, all of that stuff. It makes it a more enjoyable and a less limited experience than perhaps some of the earlier ones. So JX-08, I like the sound of it. If you're after that big, wide, chorusy sort of analogy vibe, as long as you want a square or a sawtooth wave, then Bob's your uncle. It's available for £349 UK pounds. Other currencies will scroll below. That's it for this time. Thank you so much for watching. I'll play out with a little bit more noodling. See you next time.